Some breaking news very early on a Saturday from the NFL Combine here in Indianapolis as the San Francisco 49ers have finally found their new defensive coordinator. They are promoting from within. Pass game coordinator Nick Sorensen has been named to replace Steve Wilks. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you to all of you for waking up here with us. So this is what I had been hearing all throughout the week here in Indy, that if the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan did promote from within, it was going to be defensive pass game coordinator Nick Sorensen, who also throughout the week holds a meeting with the defensive side of the football as far as how San Francisco can generate turnovers. He has the respect of John Lynch. He has the respect of head coach Kyle Shanahan, and this is a coach who the players are also familiar with because he's been with this organization over the last couple of years. So I had been hearing if the Niners go internal, it would be Nick Sorensen, and it is indeed Nick Sorensen who is going to be the next Niners defensive coordinator. Adam Schefter breaking the news at 4:30 a.m. Pacific, 7:30 a.m. here in the Eastern time zone. And it's not just Nick Sorensen who's getting hired by Kyle Shanahan and this organization. Two big hires to this staff, as Schefter reports here. The Niners plan to hire their defensive pass game specialist, Nick Sorensen, as the new DC, as well as former Chargers head coach, former Rams defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, for a prominent staff role, possibly assistant head coach. That's from Schefter, as well as Jeremy Fowler. Both of them been walking around here in Indianapolis. And Schefter then further clarified it looks like Staley is indeed going to take over for Anthony Lynn, who used to be kind of the de facto assistant head coach and running backs coach alongside Bobby Turner. He went to the Washington Commanders, and now Staley fulfilling that role to be the assistant head coach. And there were 5 known candidates to interview to take over for Steve Wilks, to become the next Niners defensive coordinator, a defensive side of the ball that slipped a little bit from 2022 to 2023. The pass rush win rate went down, the sack percentage decreased, the running game went from number 1 all the way to 26th, EPA per play from 1st to 12th. There was a little bit of a regression under Wilks. Here are those known candidates that the Niners did in fact interview here to try to fulfill that defensive coordinator role. They hire Nick Sorensen. They did interview Brandon Staley, as we talked about on the show. That was reported by Matt Mayoko, NBC Sports Bay Area. He's had boots on the ground here in Indianapolis as well. Daniel Bullocks, who's a respected defensive backs coach for San Francisco, also interviewed. So too did David Merritt, defensive backs coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Gerald Alexander, who is currently the Las Vegas Raiders safeties coach under Antonio Pierce, who finally was named the head coach a few weeks ago after he was given the interim role there in taking over for Josh McDaniels, who got fired this year. This is not what I would have done, but to Kyle Shanahan's credit, the last 2 internal hires who Shanahan has promoted from within have worked out very well. Niners had an excellent defense under Robert Saleh. They made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. DeMeco Ryans had no play calling experience either, or coordinator experience. He was a linebackers coach after a great playing career with the Houston Texans and Philadelphia Eagles. And Kyle Shanahan, once Robert Saleh took the Jets head coaching job, promoted DeMeco Ryans to be the new DC. And both of those hires really worked out. So I get it. This isn't what I've done. It's not a sexy hire. A lot of fans, I'm going to take a look at the comment section, are probably fired up about this because they disagree with the direction here with the team that has a loaded roster on the defensive side of the rock and just made it to the Super Bowl. But look, Shanahan has a great track record of finding quality coaches. It's one of his special talents, and players, as well as the organization, are high on Sorensen, and they look at him as an emerging star. As for his coaching path, he was in the league for a long time. As a player, He first played at Virginia Tech. He was a safety and a linebacker. He was with the Dolphins practice squad, with the Rams 2001-2002, Jaguars 03 to 06, then with the Browns 07 to 2010. And then for his coaching career, gets his start under Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks 2013 to 2015. He's the Seahawks assistant special teams coach. 2016, he gets elevated to become the Seahawks assistant defensive backs coach. 2017 to 2020, Seahawks secondary coach. 2021, he gets hired by Urban Meyer to be a coordinator, and I think his experience as a coordinator benefited him in this process. He's the special teams coordinator with Jacksonville in 2021, and then once Urban Meyer gets let go, Doug Peterson comes in, so that does it for Sorensen in Florida, and he comes out to the West Coast, NorCal, gets hired by Kyle Shanahan, Niners defensive assistant in 2022, and then the defensive pass game coordinator for San Francisco here this past year for a back end that played really, really well. Charvarius Ward was a second-team All-Pro. Ambry Thomas played good, and then Diamador Lenore really started in the slot. And then you saw Talanoa Hufanga before he tore that ACL. He was balling out, and Jair Brown stepped in as a rookie, and Deshaun Gibson has been really solid his last 2 years. Sorensen's ties to Pete Carroll, this is of note as well, most likely played an important role in this search, in this hiring, in this process. Why? Because San Francisco runs a version of that scheme. Front four tries to eat, get after the quarterback, and then you run a lot of zone coverage concepts on that backside. So with that, more to come coming up around the corner, but first, grade the hire of Nick Sorensen as the next and new Niners defensive coordinator. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you think about this move by Kyle Shanahan and this team to replace Steve Wilks down in the comment section. Coming up next, as far as Brandon Staley, this is interesting here. What is his role? And I have some more thoughts on Sorensen being tabbed as DC. But first, Prize Picks is our sponsor for today's San Francisco 49ers Report, the best daily fantasy sports app in North America and the largest independently run DFS app here in North America as well. You can pick more, pick less, and win up to 25 times your money with Prize Picks. $100 deposit match available for you at prizepicks.com/CLNS. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players, and you choose more or less on their projected stat lines. But for the purpose of us being in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, let's take a look at some 40-yard dashes. Yee! Jaden Daniels, less than a 4.51. I think he's going to run a sub-4.5 40-yard dash because when I watched him run at LSU, he had that getaway speed. It was impressive. And he was asked about some Lamar Jackson comps. He said, I don't like to compare myself to anybody, but I can see some comparisons between myself and him. So let's go less than a 4.51 40-yard dash for Jaden Daniels. Adonai Mitchell, he was really entertaining to speak with yesterday. Less than a 4.51. I think he could end up being the better Texas wide receiver between him and Xavier Worthy, who's a burner and had a formal meeting, by the way, with San Francisco here in Indy, and then Roman Wilson. 4.33, that's really speedy. I'm going to go more for the Michigan national champion from last year under Jim Harbaugh, who is so good just carving up linebackers and DBs out of the slot. $100 deposit match, prizepicks.com/CLNS. I know that I pushed the Bill Belichick movement here on the show. I was one of the first people to say, look, if you're going to let go of Steve Wilks, and I said this before Steve Wilks was actually let go, I'm making a call to Bill Belichick, one of the best defensive minds of all time. He's currently on the unemployment line. It was never realistic because him going from winning 6 Super Bowls as a head coach to him becoming a defensive coordinator for a year, because I think he wants to be a head coach in 2025. He just didn't get hired this year, was never really realistic. But I would have at least made the call. My guy Niners Sports Talk on X did say that Kyle Shanahan reached out to Bill Belichick and he politely declined. What I want to know also, on top of, did you actually call Bill Belichick? And Shanahan's going to have to answer that question the next time he publicly speaks with the media. Why wasn't Mike Vrabel an option? We were chopping it up with Cooper DeJean's dad last night, Iowa DB, who's most likely going to be a first-round pick, and he said he ran into Mike Vrabel the other day here in Indianapolis. This is kind of like a job conference here in Indy for people who are looking for jobs, who are currently employed, to just talk football, connect, just like a regular job conference would be. And Mike Vrabel was here. He's currently unemployed. Did Kyle Shanahan reach out to him? With Sorensen, I think the bottom line here, ties to the Seattle staff. You, like John Lynch said, get to run the same system that's really worked for this team over the last 7 years. Familiarity with the scheme important. He's known by the staff, the players, and the organization. But also, as part of this, what is Brandon Staley's role going to be? Former head coach with the Rams in 2020. That defense was a top 5 overall unit in multiple statistical categories. And the Niners, in hiring Brandon Staley here to become the assistant head coach under Kyle Shanahan, bring in another quality defensive mind who has play calling experience as a defensive coordinator. He did not work as a head coach, but some people are meant to be coordinators, and I think that fits the mold for Brandon Staley. He's smart, he's creative, he's very well respected. When a coach like Sean McVay hires him and then Kyle Shanahan hires him, those are two of the best overall football minds in the business. Two really good coaches at finding and developing other coaches. I put trust in that hire here. Here's what John Lynch had to say on Tuesday from Indianapolis on Staley. He's a really bright dude. We have an open mind, but we do know there's certain core principles that we're going to always be on the defensive side. I wouldn't rule him out because of that. Now, obviously, that was said before the Niners hired their defensive coordinator, but that goes to show you the respect that Staley has been able to garner here. You can't really deny the Niners' track record of hiring coaches. They've done a really good job in this area, and that's why other teams across the entire National Football League have looked at San Francisco as a model organization. They've developed front office talent. They've developed coaches in this league, and that's why other executives in the front office and other coaches have continued to get plucked and poached by other organizations to run football ops for another team, or to be a head coach, to be an offensive coordinator, to be a defensive coordinator. San Francisco's track record here in this regard can't really be denied. And just like Anthony Lynn was the assistant head coach for San Francisco, Brandon Staley is going to step in for that role. You had to fill it, and Kyle Shanahan does that with Staley, who they are said to have a relationship. And look, in business, in sports, it's always good and it's always smart to have a backup plan. If the Nick Sorensen hire does flop, and if it doesn't work out, if he's in over his skis and he's not the guy to be the defensive coordinator for this team, you can make an in-season switch and you have Staley waiting in the wings, who at that point is going to become familiar with this defensive system and this scheme. He's going to have more familiarity with this team. And with the roster, he can step in and he can be defensive coordinator for 2024 and maybe beyond. This is why you subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, to the San Francisco 49ers Report. Breaking news happens, and I believe that we give you the best information when situations like this arise. It's extremely early here in Indianapolis. I woke up, wiped my eyes, looked at the phone, saw the notification. Nick Sorensen, defensive coordinator. We rush in here to the Indianapolis Convention Center, and we bring you a video. Hit that sub button. Thanks for watching, and keep it locked here for daily coverage on the San Francisco 49ers.